Hello everyone and welcome back for some more TV, movie and pop culture, gossip, secrets and drama. Footballers' Wives was a British drama that ran on ITV from 2002 until 2006, spanning 5 series over 42 episodes. The show was set around a fictional Premier League football club called Earls Park, and it followed the players and their wives through all sorts of outrageous storylines including affairs, attempted murder, drug abuse, and quite a lot of explicit content for a primetime ITV drama. The show was a massive hit, and at its peak it pulled in around 6 million viewers a week. It also launched several of its cast members into household names. However, behind the scenes there was quite a lot of drama surrounding the show, involving censorship scandals, cast departures, and some very messy personal lives that in some cases were more dramatic than the show itself. So today we're going to be doing a deep dive into what really went on behind the scenes of Footballers' Wives, what happened to the cast, and where they are now. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. The real story behind the show. Before we get into the actual cast, it's worth talking about where the show actually came from, because a lot of people don't know this. The TV show Footballers' Wives was actually based on a real book called Footballers' Wives Tell Their Tales, which was written by a woman called Shelley Webb. Shelley was married to Neil Webb, who is a former England and Manchester United footballer. In 1998, Shelley interviewed 14 real footballers' wives, often called WAGs, which stands for Wives and Girlfriends. The picture that the book painted of their lives was nothing like the glamour you might expect. The Daily Telegraph described it as a, quote, dismal picture of chronic insecurity, upheaval, boredom and loneliness. And what makes this even more interesting is that Shelley published the book the same year that she and her husband Neil split up. Neil's football career had been cut short by injury, and he later ended up working as a postman and then for a transport company. So the woman who inspired the show saw the harsh reality behind the glamour firsthand. ITV then took that book and turned it into something completely different. They basically made a British version of the American show Dynasty, but instead they set it in a football club, made it much more whimsical, and it became a huge hit. The show was produced by Shed Productions, who also made the show Bad Girls, and it was created by Maureen Chadwick and Anne McManus. They filmed at real football grounds including Selhurst Park and the original White Hart Lane before it was demolished. They also had real celebrities who did cameos in the show, including Katie Price, Peter Andre, Tara Palmer Tompkinson, and Richard and Judy. At one point, real footballer's wife Victoria Beckham publicly criticised the show for being unrealistic, which is quite ironic given what we know now about actual WAG culture. Zoe Lucker as Tanya Turner. So let's start with the show's biggest star. Zoe Lucker played Tanya Turner, the scheming, manipulative wife of the team captain, and she became the show's most iconic character. The role was a breakout for Zoe, and she won TV Quick Award for Best Actress in 2004 and was also nominated for a National Television Award. However, behind the scenes, the intensity of filming took a real toll on Zoe. She's spoken about how the stress of the show affected her, and it actually led to her reading a book by the Dalai Lama called The Art of Happiness. This then led to Zoe making a pilgrimage to northern India. She and her co-star Sarah Barand actually filmed a 2-part ITV documentary called Date with the Dalai, where they trekked through the Himalayas and met the Dalai Lama. Zoe described it as a life-changing experience. So it was quite the shift going from being one of the most over-the-top TV characters on British TV to then seeking out Buddhist teachings by the Dalai Lama. One big behind-the-scenes drama that Zoe was involved with is that she left the show halfway through Series 4 and went to New Zealand to tour in a play. And the impact on the show was immediate. The ratings started dropping significantly without Zoe in it. ITV were apparently quite concerned about this, and the executive producer rang Zoe in New Zealand to pitch an idea to her. According to Zoe, the producer said, quote, "How do you feel about coming back if Joan Collins was your nemesis?" And Zoe said her response was basically, quote, "Well, that's a no-brainer." So Joan Collins was brought in as the character Eva DeWolf. Zoe said that working with Joan Collins was the absolute highlight of her entire career and described her as, quote, "brilliant, funny, and lovely." Joan herself called the whole experience, quote, "a hoot," and said that Zoe was nothing like her character in real life. However, even Joan Collins couldn't save the show. Ratings continued to fall throughout Series 5, and it was eventually cancelled in May 2006. After Footballers' Wives, Zoe continued to work in television. She joined EastEnders, then Waterloo Road, and then Hollyoaks. But then, in January 2024, Zoe told Attitude magazine that she was on an indefinite hiatus from acting. This was 8 years after her last on-screen role, and she said she had stepped away to prioritise her family. And when Zoe was asked about a potential reboot of Footballers' Wives, she told Radio Times that she would worry about it not being as good, and she said that she would hate for any of them to go back and for it to be disappointing. In terms of her personal life, Zoe married estate agent Richard Forshaw in 2001, but they divorced the same year. She's been with James Herbert ever since then, and they have a daughter named Lily. She also won £150,000 on Celebrity Who Wants to Be a Millionaire for the Karen Keating Foundation. The gay censorship scandal. Footballers' Wives often pushed the envelope with the stories they tackled. However, the show's handling of a gay storyline got a lot of criticism and accusations of discriminatory censorship. In Series 3, the show introduced a relationship between team captain Conrad, played by Ben Price, and teammate Noah, played by Marcel McCallum. Noah was a young black gay footballer, and the storyline drew comparisons to Justin Fashanu, the first gay black footballer to be sold for £1 million. Now, Footballers' Wives was already well known for being incredibly explicit. The straight sex scenes were graphic and post-Watershed. In fact, there was a notorious scene between Tanya and Conrad on a plane, which was investigated by Ofcom after complaints, but it was allowed to stay. And Gillian Tailforth's snooker table scene was voted number 49 in Channel 4's 100 Greatest Sexy Moments. So all of that straight sex was apparently fine. However, when it came to a gay sex scene between Noah and another male character, ITV's head of drama, Nick Elliott, personally stepped in and had it cut out. The production company Shed had fought to keep it in, but it was removed before broadcast. And this double standard didn't go unnoticed. The Daily Star described the gay scene as, quote, filth, but millions of viewers watching explicit heterosexual content on the same show was apparently no issue. The actor, Marcel, who played Noah, was quite vocal about his frustration with how it all played out. He said he didn't know anything would be banned when he took the role, and he was, quote, really surprised by how it turned out. He also revealed that he received abuse shouted at him in the street for playing a gay character, and people from certain organisations wrote to him saying that he was, quote, bringing them down as a young black man. On top of all of that, the writers then quietly wrote Marcel out of the show, and according to Marcel, he was facing unemployment with no work offers on the horizon after that. He was particularly critical of how the writers handled his character's exit, saying that issues around sexuality are not something to just quote glaze over, even on a show as camp as Footballers' Wives. He said he had received letters from young people who connected with the storyline, and he felt the show had a responsibility that they didn't fully live up to. The censored gay sex scenes were later shown in a Channel 4 documentary called The TV They Tried to Ban. One of the actors involved said he was unhappy with the decision to cut the scene because filming it had been quite a difficult personal decision as a straight actor, but then it got removed anyway. And I think this whole situation really reflects the double standard of where British TV was in the early 2000s when it came to depicting gay relationships on TV. Gary Lucy as Kyle Pascoe. If there's one cast member whose real life has arguably been just as dramatic as anything on Footballers' Wives, it's probably Gary Lucy. Gary played the character of Kyle Pascoe, the good-looking but not particularly intelligent footballer. Even before Footballers' Wives, Gary was already well known for a groundbreaking male sexual assault storyline on the TV show Hollyoaks that won him Best Newcomer at the 2000 British Soap Awards. But once he joined Footballers' Wives, his real life started making tabloid headlines almost as fast as his character. During filming, he was linked to various well-known women including Michelle Heaton from the band Liberty X, Michelle Ryan from the show EastEnders, as well as Nikki Sanderson from Coronation Street, among others. He won Company Magazine's Bachelor of the Year award, and he reportedly signed a £250,000 contract for season 3. After Footballers' Wives, Gary kept working consistently. He was on the show The Bill for 5 years, he was a runner-up on the show Dancing on Ice, he played the character of Danny in EastEnders, and returned to Hollyoaks as Luke Morgan multiple times. In 2014, he married Natasha Gray and they have 4 children together, but they separated in late 2018. He then went on the show Celebs Go Dating in 2022, where he met former Love Island contestant Laura Anderson. They got together quite quickly, and in February 2023, Laura announced that she was pregnant. But within hours of the pregnancy announcement, Gary confirmed to the newspaper The Sun that the two of them had already split up. Then, what followed was a very public falling out. Laura said that the two of them were, quote, definitely not on good terms. There were text messages that got leaked, social media accusations, and their daughter Bonnie was born a year later, and the co-parenting situation became increasingly hostile. And then there was a strange twist that felt like something that would come from Footballers' Wives. Gary's ex-wife, Natasha, reportedly became friends with Laura, and according to insiders, the two of them bonded over their shared experiences, and apparently called Gary, quote, worse than any baddie on TV. Gary has been the most vocal cast member about pushing for a reboot of Footballers' Wives, and in October 2025, he confirmed to The Sun that they are actively trying to bring back the show, possibly in a different format and potentially on a streaming platform, although he admitted that he's, quote, too old now to play a footballer. Where did everyone else end up? So now we've talked about some of the main people from the show, let's go through the rest of the main cast because some of them are quite surprising. Ben Price, who played the character of Conrad, left after Series 4 and then joined Coronation Street in 2009. He's still playing that role today, which arguably makes him the most consistently successful cast member after Footballers' Wives. He's married with 2 children and has a podcast with his Coronation Street co-stars. Christian Solimeno played the character of Jason, and the character was actually voted the second most evil TV villain of all time, only beaten by the Daleks from Doctor Who. After the show, Christian pivoted into indie filmmaking and has written and directed several projects. His most recent on-screen credit was a supporting role in the movie Den of Thieves 2 Pantera in 2025, so he's still working but just more under the radar. Gillian Tailforth, who was already well known as the character of Kathy Beale in EastEnders, was the only cast member to appear in all 5 series. After Footballers' Wives, she was on the show The Bill, Hollyoaks, Celebrity Big Brother, and then she returned to EastEnders in 2015 as Kathy Beale, despite the fact that the character had been killed off screen 10 years earlier. Susie Amy, who played Chardonnay, was only 20 years old when she was cast on Footballers' Wives. The role made her a household name overnight. After leaving Footballers' Wives, she appeared opposite people such as Gérard Depardieu in La Femme Musketeer, and she was in films with Dennis Hopper and Andy Garcia. She later moved into lifestyle blogging and beauty judging, and then she reunited with her Footballers' Wives co-star Gary Lucy in Hollyoaks in 2018, where she played his character's ex-wife. Layla Ruas, who played Amber, has probably had the most eventful personal life of any cast member. She did Strictly Come Dancing in 2009, the same series as Zoe Lucker, and she made it to the final 4. She then began dating snooker legend Ronnie O'Sullivan in 2012. They got engaged in 2013, they then split up in 2022, reconciled, split up again in September 2024, reconciled again, and then finally got married in June 2025 in a low-key ceremony at a town hall in East London. Career-wise, Layla has done well since Footballers' Wives. She's been in the shows Holby City, Spooks, Primeval, and she joined EastEnders in 2024. John Forgem, who played club owner Frank, sadly passed away in 2017 at the age of 75. He was RADA trained and had been at the Royal Shakespeare Company. He died after falling from his bed at his care home, breaking his collarbone, and he suffered internal bleeding. He was in the middle of writing his biography at the time. And Alison Newham, who played Hazel, went on to co-create the critically acclaimed period drama Harlots, and she also went on to become well known as the character D.I. Keeble in EastEnders, the detective who investigated the famous Who Killed Lucy Beale case. The reboot and the musical. Finally, in terms of where things stand now, Footballers' Wives' legacy has continued to go on. There was an attempt to make an American version of the show called Football Wives in 2007. A pilot episode was filmed with a pretty famous cast including Lucy Lawless from Xena and James Vanderbeek from Dawson's Creek, and it was directed by Bryan Singer, who directed the X-Men movies, but the spin-off was never picked up. In terms of the original British Footballers' Wives series, it has had a second life in recent years when it was made available on the streaming service BritBox in 2021, where it was one of the most requested titles. It then went into ITVX in 2023, and interest in the show surged again. In May 2025, Susie Amy, Gary Lucy, Layla Ruas and Alison Newham all appeared on This Morning together to discuss the show's legacy. And as I mentioned earlier, Gary said that a reboot of the show is being actively worked on. But perhaps the most unexpected development is that there is now a full stage musical of the show. Footballers' Wives, the musical, premiered at the Edinburgh Fringe in August 2025. It has a book written by Maureen Chadwick, who was the original creator of the TV show, and choreography by Arlene Phillips. It got 4-star reviews and is now planning a move to larger venues. So, around 20 years after the show was cancelled, Footballers' Wives is having somewhat of a resurgence. Whether the reboot actually happens remains to be seen, but the show clearly still has an audience, and we'll have to wait and see if we ever get more episodes in the future. So there you go, there was a deep dive into the drama and scandals behind the scenes of Footballers' Wives and where the cast are now. Which of these stories surprised you the most? And do you think a reboot of Footballers' Wives would actually work, or should they just leave it alone? Let me know in the comments. If you want to get early access to my videos as well as other benefits, please consider becoming a member of my YouTube channel. It just costs a few dollars a month and it does really help to support the channel, and I'll put a link to that in the description. Please like and comment on this video because it does help to boost it in the algorithm and promote it to more people. And please make sure you hit that subscribe button if you like these videos because it does make a big difference to the channel. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you'll join me again in some future videos. Thank you so much, bye!